Susan Taylor, I'm a librarian in the Special Collections Department of the Mitchell Library, and what we have here at the Mitchell, running from August until January, is a very small display, 5-case display relating to women's suffrage in Glasgow. And the whole point of the display, as with all our displays, is to highlight a certain topic using collection material just to remind people what we hold here and how they can use it for their own research. I think I'm surprised at the number of incidents here in terms of militant activity, but I was also surprised at the number of constitutional groups that were in operation as well, the law-abiding groups, and the amount of crossover between the two. There were some people who floated between different organisations at different periods, and because of the scale of it, it's just impossible to cover it all in a small display. We just don't have the room for it. The other thing that surprised me was the number of things that happened on the premises. We're speaking from the Mitchell Library here, and after a fire in 1962, the St Andrews Halls, which were right next door to us, burned down, and a few years later we were able to extend the Mitchell Library into the facade of that old St Andrews Halls building to create a bigger Mitchell Library, and it's just lovely to think that so many things happened where we're standing that were of great significance at the time. Sure. Well, there were lots of pro-suffrage and anti-suffrage demonstrations and speeches. There were fundraising activities, cake sales and things like that took place here quite regularly. But the biggest incidents related to the ones that fascinated me the most related to a lady we've got mentioned here, Alice Paul, and another couple of ladies who spent the night on the roof of the St Andrews Hall the night before the Earl of Crewe gave a speech on the budget. Their plan was to break through the roof and disrupt the speech, but they were spotted by workmen early the following morning, and the police came, took them down. That's a fascinating story, and it was covered a lot in the press because they got soaked to the skin and they'd survived the night eating chocolate. So it's quite an amusing story. The following day there was a big disruption anyway, which you can read about in the press, so their efforts weren't in vain. The urban myth goes that Emmeline Pankhurst, who was to speak here, was smuggled in a laundry basket, but I think that's just nonsense. She found her way into the building discreetly, and there was a huge crowd to hear her give the speech, and as she was a few minutes into it, police appeared from nowhere. I've read that they'd hidden in the toilets, and they wanted to arrest her because under the Cat and Mouse Act she was to be arrested and sent back to prison. So there was a big riot. The event became known as the Battle of Glasgow because the police were deemed to be quite heavy-handed. Although the suffragettes fought back, there was a good bit of violence. It's fascinating to see that there was such a different, there was a variety of different groups all in operation around the same time, with as many approaches to the campaign as there are, personality types. There were those, constitutionalists who wanted to stick by the law, wanted to have that slow drip campaign where they're having debates publicly, they're petitioning members of parliament, they're showing that they're happy to have a logical, rational, well-behaved debate. And on the other extreme, you've got people who have become understandably impatient with the whole situation and want to, perform deeds and not talk about things any longer because they've been waiting so long for any change to come. Any aspect of history, reminding people of what went on is healthy, I think, because it keeps it in your mind. You realise how far we've come on, perhaps how far we've still yet to go in some cases. Keeps it at the forefront of people's minds. It's important not only to learn about people's successes but also the failures, because I think that gives people today hope to carry on.